Have you ever wondered why some people do so much for God, yet seem restless inside? Have you ever felt that your small efforts were insignificant compared to the sacrifices of others? And have you ever asked yourself if God truly notices the quiet, hidden acts you offer each day? Saint Thérèse of Lisieux would answer gently, however, and firmly, that God does not measure love the way humans do. What appears small to the world can be immense in heaven. And what appears impressive on the outside can be empty if it is not born of love. Hook. God is not conquered by great sacrifices, but touched by small acts offered with great love. Saint Thérèse of Lisieux. Subscribe if you wish to walk this little way and learn how the smallest acts can delight the heart of God. Saint Thérèse lived her entire spiritual life under this conviction. Love, not size, gives value to an action. She never performed great public works. She never traveled the world. She never preached to crowds. She never founded institutions. And yet the Church recognizes her as a doctor of the Church, not because she did much, but because she loved deeply. She wrote, "To pick up a pin for love can convert a soul." This sentence summarizes everything. In the little way, God does not ask for what overwhelms you. He asks for what is within reach, done with a pure heart. Thérèse discovered that trying to offer big sacrifices often fed pride, comparison, and exhaustion. But small acts done with love produced peace, humility, and joy. Imagine a quiet convent morning. Thérèse rises early, feeling tired. Nothing extraordinary awaits her, just ordinary duties. But instead of lamenting the smallness of her life, she embraces it. Folding laundry, smiling at a difficult sister, offering silence instead of defense. Each act becomes an offering. This is where most souls misunderstand holiness. They think God values what costs the most. They think He values what hurts the most. They think He values what looks heroic. But Thérèse teaches that God values what is given freely, lovingly, and without self-display. Big sacrifices often draw attention, even interior attention. Small acts often remain hidden, unnoticed, and forgotten, and precisely because they are hidden, they are pure. They carry no need for recognition. They belong entirely to God. Think of your own daily life, the small patience you show, the kind word you almost didn't say, the silent endurance of inconvenience, the prayer whispered without feeling, the duty done without praise. These are not insignificant. They are precious. Thérèse believed that God delights in these small acts because they resemble the love of a child, spontaneous, simple, trusting, uncalculated. A child does not offer grand sacrifices. A child offers presence, affection, and sincerity. And God loves that. In this journey through 6 small acts God values more than big sacrifices, we will slowly uncover how the smallest gestures, when done with love, carry eternal weight. We will see why humility matters more than heroics, why intention matters more than effort, and why simplicity is the shortest path to God's heart. For now, pause and ask yourself gently, have I underestimated the value of my small acts? Saint Thérèse would smile and answer softly, He sees them, He treasures them, He is moved by them. Before Saint Thérèse of Lisieux teaches which small acts God values most, she first reshapes how we understand value itself. In the little way, value is not measured by effort, suffering, or visibility. It is measured by love and intention. This is where many souls become confused and quietly discouraged. We often believe that God values what exhausts us most, what costs us most, what looks hardest from the outside. But Thérèse gently dismantles this belief. She wrote, "What pleases God is not great deeds, but great love." This sentence changes everything. In God's eyes, an action is great not because it hurts, but because it is given freely, not because it is difficult, but because it is loving, not because it is heroic, but because it is humble. Big sacrifices can sometimes hide pride. Small acts rarely do. Imagine 2 people offering something to God. One makes a large sacrifice, but constantly thinks about it, measuring its cost, feeling its weight, comparing it with the sacrifices of others. The other offers something small, a smile, a moment of patience, a silent prayer, and forgets about it immediately because it was given simply. Which act carries more love? Saint Thérèse would answer without hesitation, the little way teaches that God looks at the heart, not the scale. He sees the interior movement that accompanies the act. He sees whether the soul is seeking love or recognition, surrender or control, humility or achievement. Thérèse understood that the desire to do big sacrifices often comes from a sincere longing to please God, but it can also quietly carry discouragement. When the soul believes that only big sacrifices matter, it begins to feel small, inadequate, and unseen. It starts to think holiness is reserved for the strong, the brave, the extraordinary. Thérèse rejected this completely. She believed holiness must be accessible to everyone, the tired, the hidden, the ordinary, the weak. And this is why she insisted on small acts. Small acts allow everyone to love God deeply, regardless of strength, health, or circumstance. Picture Thérèse during a long day in the convent. She feels weak. Her body aches. She cannot do anything impressive. But she notices a sister nearby who is impatient. Thérèse chooses to smile gently instead of reacting. No one sees it, no one applauds it. But heaven notices, because in that moment, love chose humility. Small acts are powerful because they are repeated. They shape the soul quietly, gently, faithfully. Big sacrifices often happen once. Small acts happen every day. And God prefers the love that returns again and again. This is why Thérèse taught that consistency matters more than intensity. A daily act of patience, a daily act of kindness, a daily act of trust, a daily act of surrender. These shape the heart into something God recognizes as His own. The first small act God values more than great sacrifices is one that almost everyone overlooks, and yet Saint Thérèse of Lisieux considered it one of the purest forms of love, patient acceptance of small irritations, not heroic suffering, not dramatic endurance, but the quiet choice to remain gentle when something minor disturbs your peace. Thérèse wrote, "To suffer without complaining is the most delicate proof of love." She did not mean great suffering alone. She meant the daily, almost invisible annoyances that test the heart repeatedly. A tone of voice that hurts, a delay you did not expect, a task you did not choose, a misunderstanding that stings, a habit in another person that irritates you. These moments arrive constantly, and because they are small, we often dismiss them as spiritually irrelevant. But Thérèse teaches the opposite. These are the moments where love is most sincere. Why? Because no one applauds patience in small irritations. No one praises it. No one even notices it. And that is precisely why God values it so highly. Imagine Thérèse sitting beside a sister whose habits annoyed her deeply, a situation she actually described in her writings. The sister made repetitive noises, careless gestures, small actions that quietly grated on Thérèse's nerves. Thérèse admitted that everything in her wanted to withdraw, to correct, or to internally complain. Instead, she chose silence. She chose gentleness. She chose love. Not because she felt loving, but because she decided to love. This is the little way in its most practical form. Patience in small irritations is powerful because it costs the ego without feeding it. There is no glory in it, no sense of accomplishment, no spiritual pride, only love, offered quietly. Big sacrifices can make us feel strong. Small patience makes us humble, and humility is what God delights in. Thérèse believed that God is more pleased by one moment of gentle restraint than by hours of self-imposed suffering chosen by the will. Because patience requires surrender. It requires letting go of control. It requires trusting God in the present moment. Think of how often irritation pulls your heart away from tenderness. A small frustration can harden the soul faster than a major trial. Thérèse understood this danger. She knew that love is not usually lost in great battles. It is lost in small reactions. That is why she treated these moments as precious offerings. She would say internally, "Jesus, I offer you this irritation." And in that instant, the small became eternal. This act transforms the soul quietly. Over time, patience becomes natural. The heart softens, judgment fades, compassion grows, and God recognizes His own gentleness forming within you. This is why patient acceptance of small irritations is worth more than great sacrifices. It reshapes the heart continuously. It keeps love alive in the ordinary. It teaches the soul to remain close to God even when nothing feels spiritual. Ask yourself gently, where do small irritations steal my peace? Where do I react instead of offering love? These are not failures, they are invitations. The second small act God values more than great sacrifices is one Saint Thérèse of Lisieux considered the very foundation of the little way, doing ordinary duties with pure intention, not changing what you do, but changing why you do it. Thérèse believed that most people search for holiness by trying to add extraordinary practices to their lives. She chose the opposite path. She transformed the ordinary from within. She understood that God looks first at the intention of the heart, not the weight of the task. She wrote, "It is love alone that gives value to all things." This means that the same action, done with different intentions, becomes either empty or precious in God's eyes. Washing dishes, answering an email, caring for a child, showing up to work, cleaning a room, repeating a routine task. None of these appear spiritual. None of them attract admiration. And yet when done with love, they become offerings that delight God more than dramatic sacrifices done without interior surrender. Imagine Thérèse in the convent laundry room. The work is repetitive, the air is warm, her body is tired. There is no inspiration, no emotional consolation. Everything feels plain. But she chooses to do each movement with care, offering it silently. Jesus, this is for love. That single intention changes everything. The task remains small. The act remains hidden. But the love becomes immense. Big sacrifices often happen on rare occasions. Ordinary duties happen every day, and God values what is offered consistently, quietly, and faithfully. Thérèse understood that purity of intention protects the soul from comparison. When you act out of love, you no longer measure yourself against others. You no longer ask if your sacrifice is impressive. You only ask, "Did I love?" This brings deep freedom. Many souls become discouraged because they believe their daily responsibilities are obstacles to holiness. Thérèse teaches the opposite. Your daily responsibilities are the path itself. Holiness is not found by escaping ordinary life, but by inhabiting it with love. Pure intention also guards the heart from spiritual pride. Big sacrifices can easily become occasions for self-focus. Small duties rarely do. They invite humility. They invite simplicity. They invite trust. Thérèse believed that when a soul performs ordinary tasks with love, God leans close, not because the task is impressive, but because the heart is aligned with His. Think of how often you rush through ordinary duties while your mind looks elsewhere, toward bigger dreams, bigger offerings, bigger moments. Thérèse gently reminds us that God is found here in what is given now, a cup washed with love, a word spoken with patience, a responsibility accepted without complaint. These shape the soul more deeply than rare heroic gestures. God values this act because it transforms the entire day into prayer. There is no separation between the spiritual and the ordinary. Everything becomes sacred when love is the motive. Ask yourself quietly, do I see my daily duties as burdens or as opportunities to love? Do I rush through the small things or offer them intentionally? Saint Thérèse would whisper gently, "Nothing is small if it is done for love." The third small act God values more than great sacrifices is one that Saint Thérèse of Lisieux practiced with heroic gentleness, yet it remains almost invisible to the world, choosing silence instead of self-defense, not silence born of fear, not silence that hides resentment, but silence chosen out of love, humility, and trust in God. Thérèse wrote, "I chose not to defend myself, but to abandon my cause into the hands of God." This decision shaped her entire interior life. When we are misunderstood, criticized, or judged unfairly, the natural instinct is to explain ourselves, justify our intentions, or protect our image. Self-defense feels necessary, it feels reasonable, it feels human. But Thérèse discovered that voluntary silence, offered with love, carries a spiritual power far greater than words. Why does God value this act so deeply? Because silence dismantles pride without spectacle, because it surrenders control without bitterness, because it trusts God to be the defender of the heart. Imagine Thérèse being corrected unjustly by a sister. Her intentions are misunderstood. Her actions are misread. Everything in her desires to clarify, to explain, to prove her innocence. But instead, she remains silent, not cold, not withdrawn, but gentle. Inside, she offers the moment. Jesus, you know the truth. I give it to you. This act costs something deep. It costs the ego. It costs recognition. It costs the comfort of being understood, and that is why it is precious. Big sacrifices often come with clarity. Everyone knows why they are done, but silent surrender remains hidden. It brings no validation, no reassurance, no immediate relief. And precisely for that reason it is pure. Thérèse believed that God values silence in these moments because it reflects Christ himself, silent before accusation, peaceful under misunderstanding, trusting the Father more than public opinion. Silence, when chosen with love, keeps the heart tender. Self-defense often hardens it. When you rush to defend yourself, you close inward. You protect your dignity by tightening the soul. But when you remain silent and entrust yourself to God, the heart stays open, and God enters that openness. This does not mean allowing injustice without wisdom. Thérèse did not teach passivity in matters of truth. She taught interior surrender, the refusal to let pride govern reactions. There is a difference. Silence offered with love frees the soul from resentment. Silence offered with trust deepens humility. Silence offered with faith allows God to act. Think of how often small misunderstandings disturb your peace, how quickly the heart rises to defend itself. Thérèse saw these moments as invitations, not to suppress truth, but to grow in trust. She once wrote that when she chose silence, she felt an interior freedom she had never known. The need to be right loosened its grip. The desire to be seen faded. Love took its place. This is why God values this small act more than big sacrifices. It transforms the soul quietly. It aligns the heart with Christ. It teaches the soul to rest in God rather than in its own justification. Ask yourself gently, where do I rush to defend myself? Where could love speak louder through silence? The fourth small act God values more than great sacrifices is one Sainte Thérèse of Lisieux practiced daily, often without anyone noticing, offering a gentle smile or kind word when the heart feels dry. Not when it is easy, not when affection flows naturally, but precisely when love feels absent. Thérèse understood something profound. Love is most pure when it is chosen, not felt. She wrote, "Love proves itself by deeds, and some of the quietest deeds, a softened expression, a restrained tone, a small kindness, carry immense weight in heaven." Imagine a moment when your heart feels empty. You are tired, distracted, uninspired. Someone approaches you with a need, a comment, or simply their presence. Everything in you wants to withdraw, to remain neutral, to give nothing. And yet, you choose a gentle smile. You choose a calm word. You choose warmth without emotion. This act costs more than a dramatic sacrifice because it gives when nothing is felt in return. Thérèse experienced many seasons of interior dryness. She did not live constantly consoled or emotionally uplifted. Often she felt nothing, no sweetness, no comfort, no visible reward, and yet she chose to love outwardly, believing that God sees the intention that no one else can see. Why does God value this act so deeply? Because it mirrors His own love. God does not love us only when we are lovable. He does not wait for us to feel grateful or open. He loves first. He loves quietly. He loves consistently. When you offer kindness in dryness, you participate in that divine love. Big sacrifices often come with strong emotions, zeal, intensity, inspiration. Small kindness in dryness comes with none of these. It is love stripped of feeling, given purely by the will. And Thérèse believed this kind of love delights God more than any visible offering. Picture Thérèse passing a sister in the corridor, a sister who has been difficult, cold, or indifferent. Thérèse feels no affection rise within her, but she looks up and smiles gently, not to be polite, not to be admired, but to love. No one applauds this, no one remembers it, but heaven records it. This act transforms the soul because it teaches love to exist without reward. It loosens the need for emotional return. It frees the heart from dependence on feeling. And it trains the soul to love like God loves, faithfully, quietly, steadily. Think of how often we excuse our lack of kindness by our emotional state. We believe love must be felt to be real. Thérèse corrects this gently. Love is most real when it is offered without feeling. A gentle tone when you are irritated. A kind word when you feel empty. A calm presence when you want to withdraw. These shape the soul more deeply than rare, heroic gestures. God values this act because it keeps love alive in the ordinary moments where love is most tempted to disappear. Ask yourself softly, where do I wait to feel loving before I act? Where could I offer a small kindness instead? The fifth small act. God values more than great sacrifices is one that Saint Thérèse of Lisieux considered the heartbeat of spiritual childhood, choosing trust instead of control in small uncertainties, not heroic abandonment, not dramatic surrender, but the quiet decision to trust God in what feels unresolved, unclear or unfinished. Thérèse wrote, "It is trust, and nothing but trust, that must lead us to love." This sentence reveals everything. Most souls imagine trust as something required only in great trials, illness, loss, or crisis. But Thérèse discovered that trust is formed in the smallest uncertainties of daily life, when answers are delayed, when plans change, when clarity does not come, when the future feels slightly unstable. These moments are constant and usually ignored. A decision without clear guidance, a prayer unanswered, a situation you cannot fix, a tension you cannot resolve immediately, a future you cannot control. Self-reliance wants resolution. Trust accepts waiting. This is why God values this act so deeply. It replaces control with surrender, without spectacle. Imagine Thérèse sitting quietly, aware of her own weakness, uncertain about her health, her future, or her spiritual dryness. She feels the natural urge to do something, to fix something, to understand something. But instead she rests inwardly and whispers, "Jesus, I trust you, even now." Nothing changes externally, but everything changes interiorly. Trust offered in small uncertainties frees the soul from anxiety. It teaches the heart to lean instead of tighten. It transforms waiting into prayer, and it trains the soul to live in God's presence rather than in future fears. Big sacrifices often give the illusion of control. I choose this, I give this, I manage this. Small trust surrenders control entirely. Thérèse believed that God delights in this act because it allows him to act freely. Where trust is present, God moves gently. Where control dominates, grace waits. This act is difficult precisely because it feels passive. There is no visible action, no sense of accomplishment, no emotional reward. And yet, it requires immense humility. Think of how often anxiety enters your life through small uncertainties, a delayed response, a lack of clarity, a situation unresolved. Thérèse teaches that these moments are invitations, not to worry, but to trust. She believed that God does not ask you to understand everything. He asks you to remain little, to stay close, to rest. Trust does not mean indifference, it means confidence. Confidence that God sees what you do not. Confidence that God acts when you cannot. Confidence that God's care does not depend on your control. This small act transforms the soul by loosening the grip of fear. It creates interior peace, it restores childlike confidence, and it brings the heart back into God's tender care. God values this act more than great sacrifices because it says without words, "I believe you are good. I believe you are near. I believe you are enough." The sixth small act. God values more than great sacrifices is the one Saint Thérèse of Lisieux considered the secret thread running through her entire life. Accepting your own littleness with peace, not tolerating it reluctantly, not enduring it with frustration. but embracing it calmly, lovingly, and without resistance. This act is small, hidden, and deeply interior, and for that very reason, it is precious beyond measure. Thérèse wrote, "I rejoice in being little because only little souls can trust." She did not fight her limits. She did not resent her weaknesses. She did not attempt to outgrow her dependence on God. Instead, she welcomed her littleness as the place where God's love could rest most freely. Why does God value this act so much? Because nothing distances the heart from Him faster than self-rejection, and nothing draws the heart closer than peaceful humility. Many souls try to offer God great sacrifices while secretly rejecting themselves. They strive to become stronger, purer, more impressive, more capable, believing God will love them more once they improve. Thérèse dismantled this illusion completely. She believed that God loves you most where you are smallest, not where you are strongest. Accepting your littleness means you stop arguing with reality. You stop wishing you were different. You stop resenting your limits. You stop pretending to be more than you are. And in that surrender, peace enters. Imagine Thérèse aware of her physical weakness, her emotional sensitivity, her spiritual dryness. She does not hide these things from God. She does not try to overcome them by force. She lifts them gently and says, "Jesus, this is what I am. Love me here." This act costs pride more deeply than any visible sacrifice. It dismantles comparison. It silences self-criticism. It frees the soul from the exhausting need to prove its worth. Big sacrifices often feed the desire to feel worthy. Small acceptance feeds trust. Thérèse understood that self-acceptance is not complacency, it is confidence in God's love. When you accept your littleness peacefully, you give God permission to act. You stop obstructing grace with resistance. You become soft. This is why God values this act so highly. It keeps the heart open. A heart that fights itself becomes closed. A heart that accepts itself becomes receptive. Think of how often you are harsh with yourself, impatient with your slowness, frustrated by your weakness, disappointed by your limitations. Thérèse teaches that this harshness does not come from holiness, but from self-reliance. Spiritual childhood replaces it with gentleness. Accepting your littleness does not mean you stop growing. It means you grow without fear. It means you trust that God loves you before improvement, not after. It means you stop trying to impress heaven and start resting in it. This small act transforms the soul from within. It creates peace, freedom, and joy. And it anchors the heart in the truth that God's love is not earned. It is received. When Saint Thérèse of Lisieux speaks of holiness, she does not point upward to heroic heights. She points inward, to the quiet rhythm of love lived day by day. And now, as we gather the 6 small acts together, a single truth becomes clear. God is moved not by the size of what you give, but by the love with which you give it. Let us look at them once more, gently, as Thérèse would. Patient acceptance of small irritations, doing ordinary duties with pure intention, choosing silence instead of self-defense, offering kindness when love feels dry, trusting God in small uncertainties, accepting your own littleness with peace. None of these acts are dramatic. None of them are impressive. None of them draw attention. And yet, taken together, they form a life that quietly rests in God's heart. Thérèse believed that great sacrifices often tempt the soul to look at itself. What did I give? How much did it cost? Was it enough? But small acts dissolve the self. They happen quickly. They are forgotten easily. They leave no trace except love. This is why God values them more. Imagine a life shaped not by occasional heroic gestures, but by thousands of tiny offerings, each one almost invisible, each one gently surrendered. A life where love does not wait for the extraordinary, but blooms in the ordinary. This was Thérèse's life. She did not choose what was great. She chose what was available. She did not wait for strength. She offered weakness. She did not measure her worth by sacrifice. She trusted in love. Thérèse once wrote that she wanted to spend her heaven doing good on earth, not through grand miracles, but through small acts of love. This desire reveals everything about her heart. She believed that God's kingdom advances not through noise, but through tenderness. And this truth brings deep consolation, because it means holiness is not distant, it is not reserved for the strong, it is not hidden behind impossible demands. It is within reach, today. In the moment you choose patience instead of irritation. In the moment you offer a task with love. In the moment you remain silent instead of defensive. In the moment you smile through dryness. In the moment you trust instead of control. In the moment you accept yourself gently. These moments form a path, the little way, and God walks it with you. Saint Thérèse teaches us that heaven is not impressed by noise, but moved by sincerity, not drawn by effort, but by trust, not conquered by sacrifice, but softened by love. So do not underestimate your small acts. Do not dismiss your quiet offerings. Do not believe they go unseen. God sees them, God receives them, God treasures them. And in His eyes, a small act done with great love is worth more than the greatest sacrifice offered without it. This is the gentle secret Saint Thérèse leaves in your hands, not as a burden, but as an invitation. Love simply, offer quietly, trust completely. And you will already be very close to God.